Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to do this effect. All right, so that effect is called Gaussian splatting, or the Gaussian splat effect. And it's basically in concept, it's simple. It's a match cut between obviously the first clip of whipping in, and then we've done a LiDAR scan using the iPhone to do this really cool particle splatter effect. So to do this effect, you actually don't even need a LiDAR scanning phone that has the sort of capabilities. You can basically do this with any phone, any camera. It's most easy on the iPhone because there's an app that I use, not sponsored, called Polycam. It basically takes multiple photos and it merges it into a Gaussian splat, or in this case, it's called also photogrammetry. So this effect is built off of two scenes. The first clip you're gonna need is basically you catching the camera, or you don't have to catch the camera, it's gonna be any scene where essentially you're gonna wanna match cut this exact movement. In my case, piece filmed me catching or acting like I'm catching the camera. And then for the second scene, we've used the 3D model that we've created of me in the exact same position, basically just holding my hand out, and then he's gone ahead and scanned my entire environment. So the first clip, super self-explanatory, obviously, but the second clip, you're gonna wanna keep your subject in their same exact environment, and you're gonna use the app in this case, or you can do multiple photos again, to basically scan your environment. And the way that this works is, in this case, I've used the 0.5 camera to sort of mimic, the first scene was shot on a 10mm wide lens, so I wanted that same wide look. And basically, Peace has just walked slowly around and captured as many the more photos that you get of your environment, and you basically want to slowly walk around in a 360 movement in order to capture a very accurate and 360 realistic model of your subject. The more photos that you take, that you use to create your 3D model, the more accurate and the more photorealistic that your model is going to be. So basically, first up in this shooting process again, we're just going to take a bunch of photos. As you can see here, Peace is slowly walking around. He's done about 3 different laps. Typically, I like to do a really close-up circle, a medium, and a wide. So that way you've got nice detail in your subject's face and their kind of full body environment, and then finally the whole world, so that when you go ahead later in the editing software, there's enough information to create the splat. So once you finish taking all the photos, you're gonna then upload these and create a Gaussian splat through the app. You're then gonna take that file and import it to your computer, from which we're gonna hop into the editing portion of this tutorial.
All right, so once you've got After Effects open up in your computer, unfortunately, you're gonna need a plugin for this to properly animate in After Effects. You could probably do this in Blender without a plugin, but for this to work, what we're gonna need is this Gaussian splatting plugin. It's 49 bucks. You can try it out for free just to see if it works for you. I think they're doing sales all the time. I wish this video was sponsored by them, but it's not. And in After Effects, basically, you're gonna make sure that your composition or your scene here is the exact same dimensions as the video you filmed. And so this was shot 4K horizontal, 30 frames per second. So that's 3840 by 2160, cool. And then what you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and click and drag your .ply file that you've imported from your phone into your composition. You're then gonna go into Layer, New, and click Solid, and you're gonna create a new solid. You can make this color, whatever, it doesn't really matter at this point. You've created a solid. Then you're gonna wanna go into your effects, type in Gaussian splatting, and click and drag this onto this solid. You'll then notice that 10 models show up in your effects over here. If you go on to model number 1, click the PLY file that you've imported, and now your Gaussian splat that you scanned previously is now inputted into this 3D sphere within After Effects. At this point, you can go ahead and use the crop, the align to kind of just adjust how your 3D scene looks. And basically all you're doing here is you're adjusting the center point right here, but a much easier way to do this is to go ahead and create a camera. You just need to go into Layer, New, and Camera. And then within camera, I'm just gonna set my focal length to the exact same focal length as what I filmed on. So that's 10mm. And just make sure that 2-node camera instead of 1-node camera is selected. Press OK. And now, once you've got a camera created, you can adjust your scene. You can zoom in, zoom out, do all your things. And it's a lot easier than fiddling around with the actual Gaussian splatting settings here in this PLY file. Okay, so cool. We've got our Gaussian splat loaded. And basically now you can really simply just animate this using the transform tools here. If you just keyframe your orientation and your position here, it's really easy to create really simple keyframes, zooming in and out, or really any sort of movement that you'd like to do within your actual scene. That's super simple. At this point, to create your match cut, it's really simple. You just need to match up the focal length and location of your scene between the actual clip that you filmed and this 3D scene. So what I've gone ahead and done here is just animated my camera so that it's matching that scene here, and we're just zooming out of my actual composition. That's super easy to do. I'm just keyframing, again, the point of interest, the position, and the Z rotation. You can just play around with your camera here to move it in various different ways. But if you want to go a step further and make this transition even cooler, what you want to do is you want to go down to your shape layer and go down to your Gaussian splatting settings. And you're going to want to come down to what's called the splat scale. Now the splat scale is pretty interesting. If I just enable it here, it'll show you exactly what it does. You can basically keyframe how your particles reveal themselves over time. It's a really interesting transition effect here, and it's really simple. All you have to do is basically keyframe this scale shape size. So the larger the scale shape size is, basically the more that your actual particles reveal. And so I've just started at 0 here, and I've keyframed this over 20 frames basically to 65,000. And you just got to play around with your settings depending on how detailed your actual scan is. And that's how you create this particle reveal effect. For this to work, you're gonna need your center point on whatever subject you're focused on. So because I've got my center point here, I've actually made sure that my center point, for this to work properly, you need to go to your align and make sure that your anchor point or your center point is on the middle part of your face in this case here. So I've just kind of set it around my neck area here. That's the center point, as you can see. And once I've animated and done my camera movements, you can see this really cool particle reveal effect. If you want to take it another step further, you can turn on color. So basically color, if you notice here that there's cool like green edges to my entire scene here, and that is just another step further. Basically, you're gonna go into color, and first off for color, you're going to select this green gradient. You can adjust this to whatever color you'd like, and you can even adjust like the intensity. I've just got a gradient here from black to green, and you're basically gonna wanna copy your settings for, as you can see here, scale shape size. You're gonna wanna copy your keyframe settings to color shape size here. As you notice here, if you move this and offset it, your green or whatever color you've set is not going to match up with the actual movement of your reveal effect here. But if you match those 2 points and the keyframes that you use for both the scale shape and color shape, you're gonna get this cool kind of green edge reveal effect. And it's a cool thing to really add and kind of spice up this whole transition overall. This is a really streamlined and simplified explanation of how this technique works. Basically, you're just working on how your particles show themselves, how they reveal, and then you're working on some camera movement. So the more complex your camera movement, the more complex you get with your particle reveals, the cooler things that you can create, and it's really flexible. I've done this a few different times, just kind of like match cutting, but I could see this being used in a number of really cool effects in music videos, commercials, whatever. It's really easy to do, and it's something that can really spice up a transition in any way. Once you've got your 2 clips, your raw clip and your animated clip, then you just need to combine them in a creative way utilizing sound effects. The sound design can really elevate your transition, and overall it's a really simple technique. Just using what you have at your disposal and a few different plugins can help you achieve this cool effect. I know we kind of breezed through it. A lot of it takes practice, just experimenting different which ways. If you have any questions on this particular technique or tutorial, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. As always, if you're interested in my sound effects, my LUTs, my PowerGrades, they're all available down in the description below in my store. It's always a big help to this channel, and I really appreciate it. As always, thanks for watching to the very end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.